Amy from Amy Latta Creations, back for one last video where we're going to put all of our hand lettering skills together to create some personal, one-of-a-kind quilt labels. These are so special and so important to your finished quilt because if you're gifting it, your friend or family member is going to treasure it forever because you've made it with heart and it's going to have your handwriting and your personalization on it. They'll never forget who it's for, who it's from, or when you created it. So let's take all of those elements and put them together to create a label. On the handout that you can print by clicking the link below the video, you'll see some examples. Basically, your first step is going to be to choose what you want your label to contain. For most of us, it's going to be the name of our recipient, the name of the quilter, and words to connect it, like handmade with love, quilted with love, or perhaps congratulations, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, on your graduation, whatever the occasion might be that you created the quilt to celebrate. You're also probably going to want to include a date. So think about your information, and we're going to choose the way that we want to write that. Remember, back when we were pairing fonts, we talked about choosing our fonts based on the most important information. So for example, here I chose to highlight the name Jenny, my recipient, and my name as the quilter. Here I chose to highlight the recipient's name as well as the date. I'm going to do those in my faux calligraphy. Then everything else is going to be done in that whimsical capital print. I've chosen a border for each one. Remember, we talked about the stitching combined with the needle. Here I have the flowers combined with the leafy vine that just kind of create a nice edge for my label. I used a banner here for the 4, and you can see on some of the other examples where I added in other little doodles, things like the arrow and the other things that we've learned. So as we get ready to create, my first suggestion is that you always want to make a rough draft. Our fabric is not so forgiving once we use the fabric marker on it. This is going to be permanent, which is what we want on our finished quilt. But if we're not quite sure what we're doing, it's best to practice with pen and paper first and then recreate our design on the fabric using the fabric markers. So first, I'm going to sketch out my plan. I'm going to do the double line border. So I'm going to sketch that in the center of my block. And then in the corners, I'm going to put my flowers. I love that messy flower. In fact, if you look at the cover of my book, Hand Lettering for Relaxation, you'll notice that those flowers are everywhere. So I love putting these little groups, and I'm going to repeat that in my 4 corners. Now, because I know how to draw these doodles, I'm not going to add all the details right now. I'm just going to show the placement because this is kind of a thumbnail sketch of what I'm going to actually create. I'm going to create this quilt for my best friend Erin. So I'm going to do a little banner in the corner that says 4, and I'm going to do that in my print. Then I'm going to do Erin's name in my faux calligraphy. So I will write that out. Again, I don't have to take the time to make this neat and perfect or even color in my downstrokes. This is just to show me what I'm going to do on my fabric. Then I'm going to write quilted with love. And as you're doing this, you can feel free to use a straight edge, a ruler, and a pencil if you want to draw an absolutely straight line. You can totally do that. I'm freehanding today, but you can add lines if you want guidelines. And then I'm going to add my name in faux calligraphy, and I'm going to add the date. So I'm going to come down here, and one thing that you can do with your numbers is you can also do the faux calligraphy here as well. So we're finding the downstrokes, and we're just going to thicken those. So this is sort of my blueprint for what I'm going to do on the fabric. Now I have my fabric square here, and remember we're going to clip this to cardboard or something sturdy so that the fabric doesn't move when we're writing, because that could be a disaster, and we don't want a disaster on our quilt label. Erin's favorite color is green, so I'm going to do my double line border in green. If you want to use pencil on your actual fabric, you can do that and then, whoops, and then erase that later. if you want to have some guidelines there for yourself. I'm going to go ahead and freehand it because I am a firm believer that handmade things are not perfect, and that's the way we like them. But if you would like to pencil it in, you can certainly do that. Then I'm going to take my pink fabric marker and I'm going to draw one of my messy flowers here. And I'm going to continue to draw them in each of the corners. Then I'll go back in and I'll add my leaves. If you want to add leaves along the rest of the border, you can do that. And you can also add some other little tiny flowers as well. I like to do a little 3-petaled flower, which is very simple. I'm going to take my purple and just go 1, 2, 3 little teardrops and color that in. So these markers are great for outlining as well as for filling in details. And I left some space here for some of those purple flowers. So as I'm doing this, I'm just kind of repeating the same thing in each corner, but not exactly symmetrical. And again, you can choose any of the doodles, any of the borders that you would like to use. Then I'm going to come in and add a few leaves, and then it's going to be time to hand letter my information. So I'm going to choose a color for my border. I'm going to use the purple that I used for my little flowers and come in and do that. And I'm going to write with my black marker. So here comes my banner. Then I'm going to use my black fabric marker and write the word "for" in my whimsical print. Now I'm going to write Erin's name. And I'm going to use my faux calligraphy technique. So I'll find the downstrokes, I'll color them in, and then we have the brush script effect. I'll use my print for Quilted with Love, and then go back to the faux calligraphy for my name. So I'm going to just print here. This time I'm going to lower my X height and I'm going to write my name. And I'm just going to do my first name. We don't always have to be formal when we do our quilt labels. If you want to put Grandma or Aunt Amy, like I did in my example for my niece Claire, you can certainly do that. Erin and I have been best friends for a very long time, so she's going to know what Amy it is. I don't need to put my last name. So depending on the recipient of your quilt, it's totally up to you. You can be familiar, you can be more formal, but I'm just going to say Amy because she'll never forget that it's from me. So this is just one example of how you can put together our doodles and our lettering to create a quilt label. Sometimes you might want to work with a different shape. You might want a circular label, or you might want one that's a triangle. Here we have a piece of pressed fabric, and for this, we create our border just along the triangle. So we could do that dashed stitched border. You could do any of the other borders that you want it to do. Once again, we're going to clip it down so that the fabric doesn't move. But again, I suggest that you sketch this out with pencil before you move to your fabric so that you know everything fits within your triangle because you're working with less space. So as you're working on your quilt labels, I would suggest just playing around and sketching with pencil to see what kind of designs you like. You have tons of tools at your disposal. When I teach hand lettering, I like to talk about having tools in our toolbox. Each font that you've learned, we have the faux calligraphy, we have the whimsical print, and each doodle and embellishment and border is another tool in your toolbox. So whenever you sit down to create, you're going to take that toolbox out, sift through it, and say, which tools am I going to use today? You have so many at your disposal now, and we've just gotten started. So feel free to play around, combine different things, try new looks, create things that are all your own, or follow some of my examples. Do some of both. And as you create, you're going to find things that you really love. My favorite thing is that this allows you to put your handwriting on your handmade quilts. And there is no greater treasure than that when you gift your quilt. It's a gift from the heart and it's a legacy, and it means so much to have that personal touch. So I am really honored to be able to help you bring that hand-lettered piece into your quilted work. I hope that you've enjoyed this series and that it gives you something really special and unique to add to your already amazing quilted works. Thank you for taking this time to learn with me, and I hope that you'll visit me at amylattacreations.com for more hand lettering information. And I hope to be back with you soon here at Missouri Star Quilt Company as well, with more tips, tricks, and information. Thanks again, and enjoy hand lettering.